every year I'm surprised at how many people just show up and tell us how much they love the festival and how much they get out of it. And all of our authors, just again, they are always so willing to come to our festival and be here and interact with all of the readers, and it's just a wonderful experience. We have over 100 programs, over 200 authors, and they're here, and you can interact and just hear about their process for writing their books, and finding their words and finding their voice, and just their whole backgrounds, and getting to know them, interact, go get their books. Of course, you can go get their books and get them signed by the author, and it's just a wonderful, really interactive, and I mean, both the authors and all the attendees get so much out of it, being able to be there together and, like I said, just celebrate all of the wonderful, again, works that are out there.
Good morning and welcome to our 19th Louisiana Book Festival. We're so happy we have such a beautiful day. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We're so glad we have such a beautiful day. For those of you who were here last year, we did not have a beautiful day, but we still had a great festival. And I know we're going to have a great festival this year.
On to our Louisiana Writer Award. So this was created to recognize a contemporary Louisiana author's outstanding contributions to the state's literary and intellectual life, exemplified by that writer's body of work. The first Louisiana Writer Award was presented to Ernest J. Gaines in 2000 and has been awarded annually ever since. With Gaines, the first recipient, the standard of excellence and the prestige of the award were established, and every recipient since has become a standard bearer for the award, carrying on the tradition of literary excellence. We've had James Lee Burke, Shirley Ann Grau, Yusef Komunyakaa, William Joyce, Tim Gautreaux, and Valerie Martin, just to name a few. We are honored and proud of our 24th recipient of the Louisiana Writer Award, Maurice Carlos Ruffin. Today, he joins this long lineage of literary excellence. His debut novel, We Cast a Shadow, and his collection of short stories, Those Who Don't Say They Love You, have both deservedly received extraordinary response, recognition, and awards. And so I'm going to turn it back over to Jim.
Maurice, our aim today is to celebrate you, encourage you, and thank you for what you have contributed to literary Louisiana already and the promise of what is to come. I think you just hold it.
I know, it's very heavy. I don't want to drop it.
It's going to be clear anyway.
And we present the Louisiana Writer Award to Maurice Carlos Ruffin.
I always love to work with people involved in anything involved in literature, but especially here at home in Louisiana. And to have the shock of learning that I'm going to get this award was one of the great moments I've ever experienced in my entire life. And I was humbled, and I just felt like, wow, this is just a great thing.
And talk a little bit about your life. You were an attorney at one point, a restaurateur. What made you want to go into writing?
Well, the way I think about it is that we all have a meaning that we should be pursuing in our life. I enjoy practicing law. I love having a restaurant, but I've always enjoyed stories and poems and essays, and I've always written. And I had to get up the courage to take the time to make my own writing better and to get it published. And I have to say, every moment of this writing life has been just better than the last moment. It's just a wonderful way to live your life.
That love of literature and that love is always, our children, our future, and they're just, again, building that love of books and reading and enjoying that. And again, too, when they sit there and get to meet the author of that book and see and hear the author in their own words, sitting there and saying the book, And we have wonderful, just wonderful children's authors, like Jeanette Downing, who sit there and sing and interact, and they just get to love. And, without that foundation and structure as children, sometimes it's hard to pick that up. So it's so important to capture that early.
I'm so happy to be here today and recognize these 4 amazing authors, and to recognize this is the first time that we have ever had all of our, as we call it, lyric winners here with us.
Our first winner wrote a wonderful book about an alligator. And we on our committee weren't sure. We were like, are our kids sick of alligators? What are we gonna do? We all loved it. Several people cried on our committee reading the book. We were really excited when we won. So we are very honored to present the 2022-2023 Lyric 3rd through 5th grade award to Emma Bland Smith for her wonderful book, Claude. Emma is a librarian and the author of many books for children.
So I learned about Claude the alligator on a field trip to the Science Museum with my kids. And I had seen him a lot before, but for some reason this time I read about him a little bit more. And I learned that he had this story, this background. He had a lot of trials and tribulations he had been through. And my writer's brain sort of immediately recognized that there were all these things that were trained to put into our books, and to the things that we use to create a story. There was conflict and tension. There was an appealing main character. There was a surprising ending, and all these things. And I just immediately thought, oh my gosh, this is meant to be a picture book. So luckily no one else had written it, so I went ahead and did that. And that's how Claude came to be.
What was your reaction when you named the winner of this Reader's Choice Award?
Oh, I couldn't believe it. I was so thrilled. It seems so perfect because Claude the alligator was born in Louisiana, and I'm in California, and he lives in California, so it just seemed perfect.
What's your advice to someone that maybe want to become a writer someday?
Well, I know everyone gives this advice, but read as much as you can. Reread your favorite books over and over and over again. And when you do start writing, it's so important to show your writing to other people. As hard as that can be to do, it's a great way to get good feedback.
Our next award winner is for our 2022-2023 Lyric 6th through 8th winner. The book Dress Coded had, I would say, probably the majority of the committee crying. You're going to hear that for all the authors. We all cry a lot. But this was a book that resonated really deeply with our librarians, and it was astounding what we got back, how it resonated with our students and our readers. We had several librarians and teachers reach out to us to say that they made their male students read it, and their male students came back and were like, girls can't wear spaghetti straps because of their shoulders. And it was really a wonderful thing, because I don't know if any of y'all are educators, but getting teen boys to read books and then understand the books is very hard. And somehow our winner, Carrie Firestone, managed to do that with her book Dress Coded.
Dress Coded was inspired in the back of my minivan. I had multiple middle school girls, my children and their friends, talking about some pretty uncomfortable situations they were having in school with teachers harassing them, policing them because their shoulder was showing, their knee was showing, and some pretty creepy stuff. And so I ended up pausing. At first you just listen to the chatter, and then I was like, wait a minute, what is happening? And after an uncomfortable encounter with an administrator, I went home and started Dress Coded. I since have interviewed young people from across the country who have been dealing with these issues, and I've tried to express that this is not about the clothing, it's about the feeling of being harassed and made small and made to feel like what you're wearing is more important than class because you're sent to the office, and made to feel like you can't get it right, because if you're a middle school kid and you're trying to figure out what to wear in the morning, and then on top of that you have somebody criticizing and making fun of and harming you in front of your classmates, that's really ugly. And often I would talk to boys who would be like, don't tell us we're distracted. We're not distracted. Don't put this on us. So I'm glad people are sharing that with classes. I will say I write books for the purpose of starting conversations. And I feel like luckily, this book has resonated with a lot of people. It started conversations, and I've had calls and messages from across the country, from Massachusetts to Alabama to Iowa, from mostly seventh graders, very sassy seventh graders, saying, I'm meeting with my school board tonight. Can you help me? We're calling our administrator. Can you help us figure out what to say? That's why I write books. And I will say, just because I'm here, and I want to share that the children's literature world is going through a really hard time right now, a really hard time. Author friends of mine, author colleagues who have spent a really long time getting their books on the shelves so that kids can see themselves on the page, all kinds of kids, are now being told, you can't come to our school for a school visit because your book is making 2 people uncomfortable. Well, we don't make our money from books. We make a little bit of money from books, but we often make money from school visits. When those authors can't get paid, they can't write more books. And so children are being basically told, we don't want to see you on the page because of this, and therefore we don't want you to exist in this world. It's painful, it's hard, and I'm just asking you as I stand here to please support authors, educators, librarians who are really trying to help every single kid see themselves on the page in various ways. Books are a canary in the coal mine, and we need to be brave right now. So thank you so much for this. I so appreciate it, and thank you.
I was thrilled. I was so honored to just be invited to Louisiana and to be part of this whole process and to have readers acknowledge the book. So,
How long did it take you to become an author?
to become an author, probably a whole lifetime. In fact, I didn't publish my first book till I was 45.
What's your advice to someone that maybe want to write a book someday?
I would say 12 drafts. That's always my advice, meaning, I think a lot of people write a draft of a book and they think, I'm done, I'm going to submit it and publish it. 12 drafts per book before you get to that final place where you're ready to submit.
So with our lyric committees, since we're all librarians and adults, we sometimes tend to skew a little dark. We like the tragedy. Like I said, we all like to cry all the time, the emotion, the hard feelings. And we have really tried in the last couple years to really try to find joy in books. And our next author was our 22-23 Louisiana Teen Reader's Choice Honor Book. And she wrote one of the most joyful teen books we have read in a long time. And it was one of the books that the entire committee was like, okay, everybody's death, dying, horrible things happening. We need to have Lila Lee's book in here because, my God, we're all so dark. And this cover is joyful. The story is joyful. But it also resonated with a lot of people on our committee. And as time has gone on, we have found out it has resonated with a lot of our teen girls in the state. Unfortunately, when we get to the high school level, the boys stop voting. I don't know why. I guess it's not cool. But the girls keep reading. The girls love it. We get a lot of feedback, and we have gotten so much feedback about, thank you, Megan, for having a joy book, having a book that's happy. And we didn't all sob and cry ourselves to sleep reading this one. Thank you. And so I really want to thank Lila Lee, the author of I'll Be the One, and thank you for being our honor book for 22-23.
I would also like to, of course, thank the teens who voted for I'll Be the One. I think it's very fitting that this book, out of all my books, won the Teen Choice Award because it's the book that I wrote for my teen self. I grew up in I grew up in very challenging times, and I experienced a lot, and I think I only just grew to love myself in my early 20s. So this is the book I wrote as like a love letter to myself, to encourage my teen self, and also other teens out there in the world today to love themselves and to have fun and be joyful. It's a book that I wrote kind of an accident. Like I wrote it in a time where I just need a little bit more joy in my life too, and I wrote it while looking up K-pop videos on YouTube, learning BTS choreographies, and dance. I dance and sing while writing the book. So I'm so glad that it spreads joy the way I intended it to do. So yeah, in the book, Sky, the main character, has big dreams of becoming a K-pop star. In the process, she experiences a lot of opposition from the other contestants, the judges, and even her own mother. But spoiler alert, she prevails in the end because she never gives up on herself, just like I never gave up my dreams as a teen. And I encourage every teen today to also never give up on themselves. I've actually never really wanted to become a K-pop star myself. It's actually a worst nightmare situation for me. If I would never want to do that. But I did start seriously writing books as a teen. I actually started writing books when I was in 4th grade. But by 8th grade, I was like very serious about becoming an author, and I sent out my first query letters to agents in 8th grade. I know what I was doing in retrospect, but that's when I was trying my best. And now as an adult and an author, it is my hope that I'll be the one in my other books continue to help kids and teens in Louisiana and elsewhere to feel seen and less alone. Because I think that's why I started out writing. When I was a kid, facing all these hardships and moving around a lot, I felt so alone as a teen. And one of the only things that helped me feel seen and less alone were books. So that's actually my mission today of why I still write books and why I'm here today. So yeah, it is my hope that my books continue to help teens feel seen and less alone. Thank you. I was very surprised and very honored. I've actually done a lot of book visits and author visits in Louisiana, so it wasn't totally unexpected, but I'm very honored to be here, yeah.
Tell us about the book that you've written.
So I'll Be the One is about a Korean-American teenager named Sky, who enters a K-pop competition, and she faces a lot of adversity, but she doesn't give up on herself. And it's basically a story about achieving your dreams no matter what opposition you face. And I hope that it continues to inspire teens in Louisiana and elsewhere.
What's your advice to someone that maybe want to become an author?
Don't give up, but also remember to take care of yourself and be kind to yourself, because it's not a easy industry. It's very hard, so you might face a lot of rejection. So yeah, keep going, but also take it easy.
So our final award for today, 2 things. One, we were very, very excited that our top 2 teen books for 22-23 both had Asian American representation, which is kind of a big deal for our committee. We were very excited, so thank y'all. But personal story, I read our next 22-23 Louisiana Teen Reader's Choice winner, Almost American Girl. I read it last year, I think, maybe. Whenever I read it, I sobbed, I had an existential crisis. I ran out to my administrative assistant and said, this is gonna win. This is gonna win. And she said, Megan, you're new at the job. Calm yourself. Graphic novels do well, but they rarely win. And we've never really had a lot of Asian American representation, so chill. And I was like, I got it. So when I was counting the votes a year later, I was like, Almost American Girl, Almost American Girl, Almost American Girl, Almost American Girl. I was really excited. I fangirled. I got to hang out with Robin yesterday driving. Fangirled. She probably wanted to jump out on the freeway. But I'm really honored to introduce our Lyric winner for 22-23, Robin Ha with Almost American Girl.
I wrote this book because when I was just starting out doing freelance cartooning as a full-time job, I was reading a lot of other graphic novels being published in the US, and I realized there were barely any books out there that had an immigrant Asian teen as a main character. And I realized that is a problem because when I moved here, I was 14, and I read a lot of American books, but there were nothing that represented who I was. And people say, books are the mirror and the window. And if I had a book like this, I would have felt so not alone. And at the time, I felt really hopeless because, being a teenager, things are kind of like black and white. I was like, I will never learn to speak English. I will never make friends. Things will never get better. But if this book, being a memoir that's based on true story, if I read a book like this, I would have had some kind of hope that things will get better eventually. So, like Laila said, I wrote this book for a teen self or anybody who's out there, even if they're not Asian or if they're not a teenager, if they're experiencing like not fitting in, being fished out of water, and just being really lost and not knowing where to belong, I wish that they would read this book and feel a little bit more hopeful. So thank you so much for recommending my books to the teens, and I'm just really honored to be here. Thank you.
I was very surprised and also really happy. My book came out actually in the beginning of 2020, so I didn't really expect that I'll be winning an award like this 3 years later, but I'm really glad that people are reading my book, and I'm glad that, you know, librarians are really championing my book all over the states. So I'm just really happy to be here.
What advice do you have to someone that maybe want to become an author someday?
I would say read a lot. Reading a lot is the best way, I think, to learn how to write a good book. So read a lot, read all kinds of books, and I think there's nothing more important than being patient with yourself and keep trying.
I'm a fanatic when it comes to horse racing and race horses. And so my favorite horse has always been, before Lexington, Man of War. And I was reading a book about Man of War, and the authors compared Man of War to this horse I had never heard of named Lexington. And they said Man of War was to the 20th century what Lexington was to the 19th century. And I was intrigued, since I had never heard about Lexington, and started looking into Lexington, and there had been no book at all written about this horse, who they said was a legendary horse that had enthralled 19th century America, and that he raced prior to the Civil War and was a horse very much that unified a nation that was already tearing apart. And how could this be that you have this horse that was such a legendary symbol like that, you know, and a symbol of hope to the people, and there had been no book written about this horse? And so I'm a lawyer. I started researching the horse to find out what I could find out about him. And it really just snowballed into a passion, really. I mean, just continuing to research the horse and going to all of these various states and historical societies, looking at archives. Of course, the Keeneland Racecourse Library was a huge repository of information. And I just, in a crazy idea, decided to write the story. It's crazy. But it took many years. So this story has been in my life for 10 years. And it wasn't 10 years of solid work because I was practicing as an attorney. But the story has been in my life 10 years, and it took about 10 years with everything to get it here today to you. And so that's why now. By April 1st, the day of the great state, some 20,000 people, all with the goal of witnessing what the Picayune labeled the most celebrated event in the annals of turf history, had taken up temporary residence in the city. All of them purchased their grandstand tickets, which on this day were double the normal price. Those in the members section basked on the knowledge that they would dine on eggs and thinly sliced meat, and indulge in bottomless glasses of champagne. People filled the parlors and halls of every hotel and establishment with laughter and talk. Of the Kentucky women at the St. Charles, Ripley wrote how they talked in that soft Southern accent, so peculiarly their own, how they laughed, how they moved about, seemingly knowing everybody they met, how they bet. Despite the previous days of rain and wind, the day of the great state was beautiful and warm. The mayor of New Orleans declared it a half holiday. That morning, all the avenues leading out of the city were clogged with every means of transportation imaginable. Wooden carts and drays loaded with people and hauled by mules wheeled slowly alongside grand carriages of polished mahogany with red velvet seats and gold-colored spokes. Gloved passengers opened picnic baskets filled with Southern-style arrays of baked ham, chicken, brandy, beer, and, of course, cigars. Sporty, bright yellow curricles, two-seaters, zipped through between larger carriages, leaving trails of dust and squeezing out riders on horseback. A 9-passenger stagecoach owned by the St. Charles rode through, carrying far more than the allotted number, spiking the air with a party-fevered pitch. The whole of the morning was an exodus of sorts, a divestment from the city of nearly a fifth of its population, all of whom were trying to make it out to the Metairie, the promised land. There was one problem. The same rain and windstorm that had ripped the chimneys off the New Orleans packet steamer had turned the Metairies track into a mud pit. Worse, as the wind swept across the track, the dirt had stiffened into a clingy, glue-like consistency. Mud, 8 inches in depth, congealed across the top. The Picayune called it tenacious, as if the mud had a mind of its own. And though Lexington was a mudder, bettors doubted he could prevail in his first attempt at 4-mile heats. In the spirit, one man predicted, "I do not think Lexington has enough foot for these flyers." His questionable speed wasn't the only issue the gambling crowd considered before parting with their hard-earned cash. Thanks to the Picayune's write-up about the Sally Waters match, the reading public was now aware that Tim Brooks' horse had questionable vision. Those who had visited the horse tucked away in his stall at the Metairie had seen the opaqueness, the untracking gaze hauntingly absent of life, as if a part of his soul had vanished. The only glimmer of Lexington's spirit may have been the abrupt turn of his head toward a noise, his incessant pawing at the ground, or his nose nudging their shoulders as if to say, "What do you see?" Whatever physical power the stallion might have, his felling vision could upend any chance of his winning. But a stellar victory over the highly acclaimed Sally Waters, when he had run nearly blind, gave bettors some assurance. Many of them took the risk. In the odds, Lexington trailed second to Alabama's Highlander. So Lexington lived for 25 years, and he died in 1875. If I'm remembering this, I should know because, my gosh. It was at that time, when he did die, that his bones were ultimately exhumed because he had made such an impact in his lifetime, on society. And, there's a great quote that I put in the very beginning that he was not just a turfman's horse, he was the nation's horse. And because of that celebrity status and people adored, they wrote that he was almost, this is sacrilegious to say, but that he almost had like a deity, aspect about him, that he was so revered. And he was exhumed, the bones were exhumed about 4 months after he died and was buried, and then they were articulated for the Smithsonian Institute. And so
that part is really true.
That is, well, he is owned by the Smithsonian Institute, and he was put together for the Smithsonian Institute at their request. And he now stands, anyone can go to Lexington, Kentucky, to the Kentucky Horse Park and see him. He's on display there. I go all the time.
Our next author, and is Glenn Guilbeau, who's right here, and he's written with Leo Honeycutt, Everything Matters in Baseball.
Skip did talk about visualization a lot. In fact, he would, when he was coaching a high school team in Miami Beach High, the day before the championship game after practice, he made his players practice carrying him off on their shoulders after they won the championship. So if you see it, and you think about it, then it's going to happen. And one of the pitchers that was a great pitcher for LSU, Rick Green, he said that they visioned stuff so much that was going to happen, and then when things started happening that they visioned, and as they stayed there longer, he said he couldn't remember what really happened or what he imagined happening, and it didn't matter because good things kept happening. He won a national championship, so that stuff really works. If you think about it, it can happen if you see yourself doing it, and that hopefully that is a trend throughout the book because he sure talked about it a lot.
What is the line that he says that his players remember vividly if you fervently?
Oh yeah. That's like a whole quote. Yeah, whatever you fervently desire.
Yeah, this is
cool.
Great.
Good idea to put it right there. Anything you vividly imagine, ardently desire, sincerely believe, and enthusiastically act upon must absolutely come to pass. Author's session today is about sports books. I'm Glenn Guilbeau. I've written the Skip Bertman story, autobiography of the former LSU baseball coach and athletic director. There's definitely always a consistent amount of new sports books every year. Whenever baseball season starts every spring, there's a whole new slew of baseball books. whenever a coach has a great season and wins the national championship, which is every season, right? There's a book about that coach, the LSU coach Ed Orgeron. There was a book about him when he won the title in 2019. So you're never going to not see sports books consistently coming out every year.
How popular are they?
Well, I think they're real popular. I just know from my perspective as a little kid, I was a sports fan, and the first books I ever read were sports books. So that's kind of a bridge to other books. Most little kids don't want to read books, but if they can start by reading sports books and then get into other books. That's what I did.
So basically, I've been writing poetry for many years now, and with the encouragement of some of my English teachers last year, I submitted some of my work to the Scholastic Arts and Writing Awards. And then when my work was selected for a national medal, it put me in the running to be selected as a National Student Poet. And then along with the 4 other poets here, I was selected to be a finalist for the National Student Poet Program.
It was pretty exciting, I guess.
Very exciting, yes.
I've been writing for as long as I can remember, but I've been writing poetry for the past couple of years, and yeah, I think similar thing. I submitted to Scholastic just sort of to see what happened, and I got considered for this position, and I submitted like some more poems, and here I am.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a similar story, except I only started writing poetry seriously in sophomore year. And yeah, I submitted my work. I was really not confident about it, so I was, a bit shocked that it got the recognition it did.
And you're a senior now, or?
Yeah, I'm a senior.
Wow, that's impressive.
I also have a similar story. I submitted to Scholastic because it was a requirement for like an English program at my school that you have to submit to like at least one. So I just did Scholastic, and then when I heard about like getting a medal and then the follow-up of like we want you to submit more, it was just like, okay, I'm gonna go for it. Like, yeah.
I think I would say I started writing my freshman year. I'm currently a junior. I submitted to Scholastic just browsing around my sophomore year, and I just I wasn't really surrounded by I guess teachers that would encourage my writing. They never really paid attention. But once I submitted, thanks to a teacher I used to have, well, it was like a weird experience for me because, I don't know, it was just different. I had never thought of getting serious about my writing, but it's like a whole new experience when you realize that, wow, I got recognized nationally. It's a crazy feeling. Yeah, being part of National Student Poets Program, it's really an honor.
Yeah. What ultimately do you hope to achieve when the program's over? Or when you're done with the program?
Well, I haven't really thought about that, but I always say it whenever people ask me that question, what do I aspire to continue doing? I really want to get more youth involved into poetry. That's my main goal. Mostly because most of my elementary and middle school years, I hated poetry for the longest time. And I know other people who have that similar feeling, so I just want to show them the other side to poetry more than the academic one.
And then, same question to you.
Right now in Oklahoma, there's a lot of like censorship laws and like school curriculum and stuff, and I think poetry is a really good way to sort of bury things in metaphor sometimes that you can't otherwise say. And so I want to work with other like kids and high school students and figure out a way to do that, and so we can say what we have to say without getting punished for it.
Yeah, similar to what both Jackie and Callan were saying, there's such an emphasis, I think, on community outreach and fostering connections in your community. In the National Student Poet position, that's really, really exciting. I'm also from Utah, so I've kind of grappled with the same issues of censorship and language, and kind of thinking about, I guess, ways to combat that, especially with other students who are passionate about writing and exploring language. So an opportunity to develop a workshop or other community-oriented events, that's something I'm really excited for, and hopefully yeah, I guess just inciting more interest in poetry or really just any kind of writing that may be just empowering or uplifting to other students?
Yeah, whenever I think about why I want or what I want to do with this program, I always think about the version of me that didn't fall in love with poetry. And I think when I fell in love with poetry, it was because I was surrounded by other people my age who were doing things with poetry that I didn't even know could be done. And I think poetry is so much more than what we get exposed to in school curriculums, and I want to share that like with other kids my age and open up this world to people who don't even know that they're have the potential to be amazing poets and to love this art form.
Yeah, I have similar answers. There are so many people in my school, even though our English teachers are pretty good at exposing our students to poetry, they still like dislike it. They think it's just Shakespeare or something, and they think it's something that's not accessible at all. So I think breaking those barriers down is important. I also feel that it's a way to make an impact that I never kind of thought I could make at this age, because I've had people read my work and, you know, other students, and reach out to me through an email saying, wow, this really resonated with me and I'm seeing this in a new light. And yeah, I'd love to publish poetry or publish my own book one day and kind of expand poetry's reach with other people.
When I was in high school, I studied to become a secretary, and I hated that idea. I didn't know you could earn your living doing art, but I had always drawn. And someone told me that Rob Wen had a 2-year program for commercial art, and I went 1 year and then got a job at Krause Company, and after that it was mainly doing it every day. I started at Krause, and then I went to Holmes, and then Maison Blanche, and then when my daughter was born in 1960, I began to freelance. So the pieces here are mainly from those freelancing years. It was a very different time. Yes, it was before suburban stores. You know, when I started, there weren't any suburban stores. But each department store had its own advertising department. It might range from 2 people at Gus Meyer, say, or Krieger's, to 15 or 20 people at Maison Blanche and Holmes, each having a special area to cover: production, layout, copy.
And how much creative freedom did you have, or did they keep kind of a tight rein on the look of everything?
Well, each department store kind of developed a look. When you looked at the newspaper, they wanted you to know it was Maison Blanche or it was a Holmes ad. And the layout people created the basic design of the ad. So we kind of had to follow that. If a woman's hand was pointing, she was probably going to be pointing at the copy, so you had to make sure her hand was pointing in that direction. But within that framework, you had some freedom. I mean, you had to make it look like the garment that it was. You know, if it had a print on it, you had to put the print on it. Or if it was a fur, you had to make it look like soft and furry. So, and every day we were on deadline. So every day that ad had to be finished because the newspaper was coming. And you might have a full-page ad or a couple of small ads to do in a day, but it was continuous, you know. But it was exciting. It was a kind of glamorous job, even though every job turns out to be just a job. You know, we would come with our hats and our gloves on and then take them off and get ink on our clothes or something, sitting at our drawing board every day. In fact, the heads of the departments were usually women. I worked more for women than I did for men, which was a good thing. And a lot of the buyers were women also, especially in women's fashion. So we didn't have that Mad Men. You know, there was a little of it, but not as much as in ad agencies, probably. We kind of had this phrase like, tomorrow somebody's going to eat crawfish on it, you know. So if it doesn't turn out well, they're going to be using it for crawfish anyway.
But it had to be a fun job, though.
It was. It really was. Yeah, it was exciting. And it was a pretty small knit group, so you knew who was leaving one store. If you wanted to get a raise, you had to move to a different store. But the pay was good for women at the time.
This is one of the children's tents that we have to offer. This is our main activity tent. We have crafts, color pages, candies, and free books for kids, one per child.
What kind of response have you had?
It has been wild. We have crepe paper flying everywhere, books going off the shelf, candy, kids. It's been wonderful. Our mission here at the State Library is really to push early childhood literacy, because we want kids to not only develop their reading skills, but also to learn to love reading and learn that reading can take them places beyond their own borders and their own imagination. I have been so excited. We've seen so many families and young people and old people and just people from all walks of life here enjoying books, literacy, and all the other things we have to offer.
What's the sequence of events? What might have been the cause and effect? The story I told to the children in the children's tent is glitter everywhere, where it came from, where it's found, and where it's going. It is a scientific and historical and cultural overview of all things glitter. I love writing for young people because they're curious about the world, and there's most of the world they don't know anything about. I love researching things I don't know anything about. I love the amount of things I learn when I'm writing, when I'm researching nonfiction for kids. And so I think, especially when it's something that they connect to, they're familiar with, that they see every day, like glitter. A previous book of mine was about the invention of the Super Soaker water gun. Before that, about the invention of Dayglow colors. When you learn about how some part of your world got to be the way that it is, that makes you think about, well, how did the rest of my world get to be the way that it is? What stories are there about that I don't know about?
Have you seen this inspire young children to become readers?
Oh, absolutely. I do lots of school visits, and I hear back from the librarians after my visits that, like, not only my books, but many other books have gotten checked out of the library. There's a surge of enthusiasm in reading at these schools after they have an author visit.
So I am here, I'm doing balloon twisting with the party artists, and we're here with 2 balloon twisters and 2 face painters.
How'd you learn how to do this?
I learned it from my father-in-law. He's been doing it for about 15 years, part of their family business. He's needed some help with some extra events, so I picked this up about 3 years ago.
How do you do it?
With a lot of practice. A lot of YouTube videos. Learned a lot from Chris, too, which is my father-in-law, so.
Looks like you got quite a line here.
Yes, definitely quite a line. We've been packed pretty much all day. We'll be here 9 to 4.
What do you think of the book festival?
It's great. I love it. I love books. I'm a big fan of reading. I do a lot of reading on my own. I've got some overdue library books I didn't bring with me today that I meant to return, but yeah, it's a great festival.
I'm writing poems to order. Someone gives you a topic and you write a poem on the spot on a typewriter while they wait. Lots and lots of practice. I don't usually rhyme though. I've been writing poems ever since I can remember. I would dictate them to my mom before I could write, but I studied it in college.
What's it like to be able to do it under the pressure of people standing here and getting a poem on demand?
The pressure really keeps you writing, and with a typewriter you can't make mistakes, you can't change your mind, you have to keep going forward.
What's it like to use a manual typewriter?
It's hard on your hands after a few hours, honestly.
So give us a short poem about the book festival.
Excited faces walking through the door, ready to learn, ready to learn, ready to explore.
I drove from New Orleans with my 4 children so they could have the best experience in books. I love books, and they love books also.
What have they been doing?
All day, face painting in books, of course. Snowballs in books. Laughter in books.
Do they like to read?
Oh, love to read. They're trying to read and walk. I said, how are you going to read and see where you're going? So they're reading and walking, so.
I'm a big reader, our whole family is, and I brought my daughters May and Susie and my husband Andy.
What have you been doing so far?
Standing in the face painting line, but we hope to go to the book tent and then see some of the presentations in this Capitol.
Is this your first time to come to the book festival?
No, probably the 10th or 12th time.
What do you like that keeps bringing you back?
Just gathering together with a bunch of people who love reading and, getting to meet some new authors and see what's going on in Louisiana literature.
I'm from New Orleans, and I came up to see all of these writers. I went and heard a lot of their speeches and stuff, and some of them are really, really interesting, particularly about some New Orleans people. And there's just so much here. I mean, it's so filled with history, and I'm a history nut. I really am.
What's your favorite part so far?
speaking to some of the authors afterwards and getting a chance to know that they're just like us, they're regular people, but they've had a lot of interesting stories to tell, and they told them.
I'm from Cleveland, Tennessee. I'm a student at LSU, and I came here because I love to read. I study literature at LSU and am excited to see contemporary authors in the state.
Who have you seen so far?
I've met Robin Ha. I'm a fan of Alison Peregrine, E.M. Tran.
What's your favorite part of the book festival?
Probably getting to actually meet the authors whose texts I read. It's really exciting to be able to discuss their works with them and meet them in person.
Are you coming back next year?
Of course.
I'm from Macomb, Mississippi. I drove to the festival for the biggest book seminar I've ever seen.
Which one did you go to?
Well, actually, this is the first one. So
What do you think of it so far?
it's a lot. It's pretty big. I didn't expect it to be like this.
Hi, I'm from New Orleans. I came to the Louisiana Book Festival today because I think literacy for children and everyone is so important. I'm a librarian, and I love to see any activity with books involved.
Who'd you bring with you?
This is my son Archie. He's just turned 3, and he's loving it. He got a balloon, and we got a free book, and he's done some crafts, so it's been great.
I'm from Nevada, Iowa. I'm a PhD student at LSU in English, and I came to help support the Dickens Project at LSU, which works to send graduate students to England or other places to do research.
What's your favorite part of the festival?
Probably just seeing all the different books and authors around that I didn't know about. So just, expanding my horizons here. And
you coming back next year?
Oh, definitely, definitely.
I'm from Macomb, Mississippi, and I drove here today because I was interested in it. I'm the reader. Out of me and Christian Alexander, I'm the reader. And I drug him here from Macomb.
What have you seen so far?
What I've seen so far? Everything. My eyes was going left and right because this is my first time coming, and I was, so excited that he agreed to come with me.
What are you planning to see while you're here?
Pretty much as I can see. See if I can just pick up some books or something interesting new authors I can explore.
We came down for the book festival, obviously, but my granddaughter Erin and her friend Abby get extra credit for RWW. They're 6th grade students at U-High. So we came for some extra credits as well.
What have they been doing since they've been here?
So we've been up to the top of the state capitol. We've been through the Arthur's pavilions. We have had some good food, met some friends from school, socialized. It's been fun.
Did they like to read?
They love to read. They were actually hoping to get Haley Arsenault's autograph. She was at school with them Friday.
I have my husband and my child here, and we just came to see what's going on and check out the authors and the books.
What do you think of the children's activities?
We haven't made it to the tent yet, so we're going there now.
Tell us, what's the best part of this festival?
This is my first time coming, so I'm not really sure, but it's great to see a lot of Louisiana authors and celebrate that.
Why is that important?
Because this is where we're from, so we support our own.
I came from Plaquemine, and I brought my kids with me. This is Zahari, Leela, and Judah.
What have they been doing?
They have been just really enjoying themselves. They got their little balloon figures made. They went over there to get a free book. They got the face painting. Just awesome.
What do you think of this book festival?
Man, I just really didn't expect it to be this good. It's just, we really enjoyed.
What about the kids? Do they like it?
Look, ask them. Yes.
Yes.
Awesome. Love it. And it all started out with him just coming for to get extra credit on his with his classes at school.
Do they like to read?
Oh, they love to read all types of books.
I'm asking you a question about who is Nola.
My wife and I, we wrote this children's book. That's why we're here today. We're promoting it and trying to get it out in front of people. It's a fantastic story about how we got our dog. My wife and I, we got 4 kids. I didn't think I needed a 5th, but this is how we got the 5th child in our family, Nola. So we're just sharing this story because it really teaches kids never give up. There's always hope. Find your people. Pets are people too. And it deals with what happens when we experience trauma. There's things that we experience and then there's similar things that happen later, and it makes us think it's going to be the same thing all over again. But Nola learns that although there are some similarities with situations we face, they don't always have to go the same way. In fact, it actually goes really well for Nola, so it's a great story.
Tell us, what kind of response have you had here selling your book on Exhibitors Row?
It's been fantastic. There's constant traffic here. There's always people walking by, and there are people that are looking for books. This is a great way for authors, especially independent authors. It's so hard to get traffic, to get people to look at it, to learn about it. And so we've been able to hand out information. We've been able to talk about the book, tell the story, and even sell some books. So really, really been fantastic for me. I've enjoyed it.
I've done a lot of work on advanced propulsion in my career. And I've started getting a lot of questions about these exoplanets that are being discovered, planets around other stars. Seems like every week, and they're discovering another one. And a lot of people ask me, well, how are we going to get there? Is it going to be as easy as it is in science fiction, or how can we really do that? So I was asked by Princeton Press, who's my publisher for the book, to write a popular science nonfiction book. It's for every person, it's not a textbook, talking about the challenges of how we might go to the stars, why we might want to go to the stars, and then realistic methods by which we could do that. And what can we reasonably expect based on our understanding of the universe today? No warp drive, no Star Trek. It'd be great if it were, but nature doesn't look like it's going to let us do that.
Is it possible?
It is possible to go to the stars. It's a matter of how long do you want to take to get there. The Voyager spacecraft that we launched in 1977, that went on a grand tour of the solar system, they're on their way out. If they were pointed in the right direction, which they're not, they would reach the nearest star in about 70,000 years. And that's using the best chemical propulsion pretty much that we have available. So we're clearly going to have to develop new ways of going faster if we're going to have a practical voyage, which I define as something that takes decades and centuries as opposed to tens of thousands of years. But it's possible, and we need to be thinking about it.
This is a remarkable story that happened more than 30 years ago. And it's a story about the making of Sesame Street in Russia in the 1990s, just after the Soviet Union collapsed. It was a period when we had tremendous hope for Russia joining the free world and, Russia becoming tolerant and an open society. And the idea was that the Muppets would bring idealistic values to post-communist Russia and the new independent countries, as well as teach children, skills that they needed. But I never could have imagined the challenges that we encountered when I went there. I had already been living in the Soviet Union for about 10 years before Sesame Workshop. The creators of Sesame Street asked me to lead the team of about 400 artists from Russia, Ukraine, Georgia, Armenia. And, I thought I understood the country. I spoke Russian, and I was in for a really big surprise.
That had to be kind of a surreal experience.
Well, it was more than surreal because, you would think that when you're making a children's educational puppet show, your broadcast partners would not be getting assassinated or your office being taken over by soldiers with AK-47s. But that's what happened. And we created new Muppets for the show. It's called Улица Sesam, which means Sesame Street in Russian. And these Muppets reflected their own society, their values, aesthetics, and the show was an original production, so not just an import. So what happens is we were able to learn so much about the society through the making of the show. But I quickly learned that, making this show really pitted Sesame Street's progressive values against about 400 years of Russian thought.
I try to come every time I can. If I'm not traveling, I'm here.
And there's a wide variety here, but a big part of it is poetry. Talk a little bit about this year. You've got the National Student Poets back, and you're going to do a panel with them, I think, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And another interesting, and I can't wait to hear the new voices. Another generation, young people who are interested in telling our human history from their point of view. So we need all of these voices so that we know who we were during this time. Another one is my interview and chat or conversation with the new poet laureate, Allison Pellegrin. So I'm honored to be a part of that. Because when I became Poet Laureate, it was the pandemic, and we couldn't do that live. So this will be very exciting.
And talk a little bit about your time as Poet Laureate. It had to be a pretty good, exciting time for you.
Not only is it a great honor, but I went a lot of different places that not only I had never been, but didn't even know existed, and so many interesting stories. Great, I mean, from Opelousas with the Black Cowboys and the museums and the great food everywhere, to Manny. I didn't know there was a Manny, Louisiana, and that was on the Badlands. And having come up watching Westerns with my dad, I knew the Badlands, but to go there and get the history of the Badlands where the criminals would cross over into Louisiana and not fear getting jailed. And then for them to build a huge lake that is now a sportsman's paradise with contests. And another interesting thing is they have ecological foresting of pine. So they grow pine and there's a harvest. So every 5 years they're planting trees, and every 10 years they have a harvest. I thought that was so wonderful that they are keeping the land but working the environment so that the air is cleaner and we still have wood for all the things that we need.
You guys are different than we are up north. We'd say up north, up to Boston. I love how sensual it is. I love the ghosts that are in this town. I love the joie de vivre. I mean, you find that in New Orleans, but you also find it in Baton Rouge. I mean, you've got the Mississippi River. People can't say that.
Touring with my book and meeting all these great people. So I'm really glad that I'm here and I'm finally getting to really speak about my book. And also librarians and teachers are just like the most wonderful people in the world. So I am really getting to know a lot of those people. So I'm really happy about that.
I have a fairly large personal library, and so this gives me the opportunity to see more things to add to it, especially, and to talk to the people who wrote those books.
It's a fantastic festival. This is maybe my 7th or 8th time coming here. Why would I not come here? So many wonderful writers who come from around the country, but also many local writers. It's also a very family-friendly festival. I love Saturday morning when you see a lot of kids and their parents walking around looking at the books and going to the food trucks. And so the vibe is just wonderful, and that's why I like to be here so much.
Our 20th is going to be bigger than probably the best ever.